In today's episode, we're building a coffee table. Now, a coffee table can be bland and functional, or it can become a conversation piece.
Exactly. And today, you know what, we've got our inspiration from what we've seen around, and there's a lot of ideas out there, but we're making it our own. So we're changing the wood and we're using Meranti. We're going to put some glass in the top. And then for the legs, we're actually going to give it some really nice curves to give it a really cool shape.
So we're also going to oil it this time. We're not painting.
We are, and the nice thing about the oil is the oil brings out that Meranti color, and it brings it really to life there.
Now, drill factor.
Well, this one you need a little bit of skill when it comes to getting all the legs looking identical, and also sort of some of the router work that needs to be done with the glass. So I give it a 4 out of 5. And let me show you the steps. Now, when it comes to the table, we're actually going to be starting at the bottom. So we're starting with the legs, and we're going to cut the shape into those, and then I'm going to show you how we get all of them looking identical. And then also it needs a base to stand on, obviously, and it's going to have some feet over there. And then for the top, we're going to put a skirting underneath there. Now the magic happens in the top, because here we're actually going to put a piece of glass into that top, and we're going to router a recess so it lays in there and it's nice and flush, and it just gives it a lot more character.
Our first step is to start working on the legs. Now, to cut out the legs, we've got a template, and this is to make sure that all our legs look exactly the same.
Exactly.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to transfer the template onto the wood and then cut it out with a jigsaw.
Yeah, well, this is really, it's going to be our guide to cut all the legs, and like you said, so that we can get them all exactly the same size. Now what's going to happen here is we're going to draw it out for the first one. Once we've cut that out, we're actually going to use that leg as our next template, because you know what, then it makes it a lot easier to be able to cut all the legs sort of exactly the same. So if you make a slight variation on the first one, it'll work itself out onto the other legs as well.
And we need 8 of them, you said?
We need 8 of them because we're actually making something a little bit different. So what we're doing is we're doubling up on each leg just to give it that sort of a little bit more character.
Exactly. Okay.
When using a jigsaw, it's important to use the right blade for the job. When cutting straight cuts into thicker wood, a normal blade with pendulum function will get the job done. When it comes to intricate cuts, there it's better to use a thinner blade with lots of fine teeth. With the first leg cut out, simply transfer these measurements by placing the leg on the wooden board, marking it out with a pencil, and now you're going to continue marking out and cut the rest of the legs, but remember you need 8 pieces in total. So Annalien's cut all the legs for us. Now you will see that it doesn't matter how good your hand is, you're always going to have sort of differences or variations. Now to get them all the same, we're actually going to clamp them all together, and then I'm going to use a combination of 2 sanders. The first one I'm using is the belt sander, and the nice thing about a belt sander is it's literally a belt that moves in one direction, and it's quite aggressive, and it's good for getting these top surfaces or the outside surfaces all looking identical. Then we're going to turn it around, and then I'm using the eccentric sander. And the nice thing about the eccentric sander is it gets into that concave. So we're using quite a rougher grit paper because we want to remove a lot of stock the first time and get it all very even. Then we'll start using a smoother grit later. Before clamping the legs together, be sure to line them all up and use a metal rule or piece of straight wood. So start off with a belt sander and work your way over all the uneven surfaces until they're all the same and they're all smooth. Switch to the eccentric sander to smooth down all the inside surfaces. So now we've done all of the legs identical, and you can feel how nice and smooth that is.
Smooth, yeah.
Right. So remember, we're going to double these up.
Exactly, and we put cleats in between.
We're going to be putting cleats in between, but what's going to happen then is once the cleats are in and the legs of them become double, so in other words, each leg is going to literally look like that.
Yes.
And you can imagine we can't get in there with the sander.
That's
so
true.
We need to finish off the sanding on the inside as well, and then I'll show you how we join them together. So you'll see I've pre-cut some cleats already. And what's really going to happen is our legs are going to double up like that. And we're literally putting the cleat in the bottom. It's going to hold the two legs together, and we're doing it on top like that as well. Don't worry about the piece that's sticking up. Once we've sanded, it'll all be flush again. So now what you need to do here is that you remember you're going to have one leg standing that side, you're going to have another one this side, and on each corner. Yeah. So mark where the inside legs are, because that's where we're going to drill our pilot holes. And all you do is just simply make an eye. So then I know that's the inside on that side, and then this will be the inside on over there, and then you should have them pretty much like that. So you do it there, and eye. Okay, so what we're doing here is just to get the pilot hole in the right place for our cleat, is I'm putting it in place and then putting it through and just making a mark over there for us so that you can then drill that through there.
Okay, and here's a neat trick. You take such a small piece and you just put it here in your clamp just to hold it, because once you start drilling, this small piece is going to start spinning and it's not easy to hold it with your hand.
So while the filler's drying, we can then work on the top. We actually got the top, and we've got our glass piece that's going to fit on the inside. Now, when it comes to measure out the glass, or actually the hole where the glass is going to fit into, is remember our glass is going to lie in a groove, and here's an example of what it's going to look like once it's in the groove. Yes. So when you work out the hole, you need to factor in that space over there. So in other words, we know that our glass is 710 millimeters, and we minus 6 millimeters on that side and 6 millimeters on that side. So the actual hole size will be 698 millimeters on there.
Yeah, so to be clear, that the hole will be smaller than the glass.
It will be smaller than the glass. All right, so then we got 200, on this side 250, we take away the 12, so it'll be 238. So that is the size of the hole that we need in our wood over here. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. So we put the glass somewhere safe, and we can mark out now where's our center, and we can take it from there. So we've got our space for the glass marked out. Now to cut that out, we're going to be using our jigsaw, and you can see it's quite a big blade here.
Yes.
Now to get the blade inside here, I'm going to drill a hole, and I'll drill a hole on that corner and I'll drill a hole on that corner. What that allows me to do is to get the blade inside, move up there and move to that corner and do the same thing on the opposite side.
Cool. Okay. And we're using a 10 millimeter drill.
Well, it's got to be big enough to let your blade go through. Yeah. And the type of blade you use is also important. So in this case, we're using one with a lot of teeth, and you can see it's very sharp teeth, so it gives us a really nice clean cut. Now we can do the actual router work, or the groove for our glass to lay into. And we're not going to do it all at one depth. What we're going to do is we're going to do our first round, and then we'll keep going down in increments of sort of millimeters until we have our glass lying flush. So the last thing we need to do is just to sort out the corners, because these are all round from our router, and you'll obviously see that your glass has got sharp corners. And to fix that, we're going to simply draw it out there, and then we'll do it with a chisel.
So let's see if it fits, Peter.
Sure.
I do trust you.
Okay. And there we go, nice and flush.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah. So now we've got our glass in, and we know that our glass fits. We can now start working underneath. And what's going to happen underneath is pretty much where the whole framework of the legs and everything fits in there. So to do that, we're actually going to make a skirting. So remember, this is going to be at the bottom side. So
yeah,
that goes in over there. That goes in like that. And then it's also going to get obviously some side pieces that will go in. And we'll fasten that onto the actual table with some cleats. Okay, and this is now going to become the basis of where our legs and everything fit onto. So to join this together, we're going to use a butt joint. And that's literally 2 screws that's going to come in on the side. And we're going to mark off for pilot holes. And we do those over there so that when it fits on, it'll go like that. And then just to hide those screws,
yeah,
we'll
wood
put some wood filler in. Okay, and we do that on both sides. Right, so we can't work on our skirting anymore because obviously we need our filler to dry. But what we can do is we can start working on where the leg now attaches on there. So this is where it goes on. And you remember our little cleat there?
Yes.
So you'll see also the reason why I made it 50 mil so that it fits within here. And we're literally going to drill 2 holes there where it'll fasten on from the inside so that I sort of avoid too many holes on the outside. And we're then going to prepare it for router work. So what I want to do is I don't want to go where our skirting is. I don't want to obviously have a router work there. So I'm going to draw a line. We're going to actually router off
then the areas that's exposed.
the sharp edges that are exposed on this side over here. And that we're going to do on all 4 of the legs. Okay, and then also, don't forget the inside. And then we're also going to take that same round over bit and we're going to work that onto our skirting at the bottom as well as onto the top on the outer edges, just to round everything nicely off there. Okay, so I'll hold it in place and you draw us a line there. So before we can attach the skirt onto our tabletop, I just need to give it a light sand. And by light sanding, I mean just to get all the corners nice and level and to take away all the filler or the excess filler. And then the last thing is just to router these sharp edges off. that's where our skirt goes, and this you're obviously looking at from underneath. So we're going to line that all up, and once we've got it centered, we're then going to use our cleat. So we're going to drill some pilot holes that are going to fit the cleat onto the actual top, and then we're also going to do pilot holes from the side, which will then hold that skirt in place. And the reason why I'm using a cleat is because it's a small enough table. The amount of movement should be minimum. If it was a much bigger table, then we would look for something like Z clips, which will then allow the table to move around at the moment. So we've got 2 longer lengths on the long sides and 2 shorter lengths on the short side. So let's get those holes done.
Well, the table more or less done, we still need a base and feet.
Well, for that, we're going to turn this around and literally mark out where this fits on the base. Now, we're going to line up all 4 of these corners here. Now, don't worry too much if it hasn't lined up 100% on all 4 corners right now. It's because wood moves, and we might have cut something slightly a little bit off than what we originally planned. Once we've marked off where they go on each corner, we're going to put pilot holes in, and then we're going to put our screws in from underneath, and at that point we're going to then pull them all back into their corners, and it'll all stand nice and firm. So that's most of our construction done. The last piece we need to do is actually give it some feet. And then I'm actually going to use these cutouts that came from the legs, and I'm going to cut 4 squares. And then these 2 outer squares, or the pieces that are sticking out, we're going to round over exactly like the same as our
like
top.
This one, yeah.
So it matches exactly in like that. We're going to put that on all 4 corners.
And then we're going to give it a light sand and oil it a bit with some teak oil. Now, doesn't this wood look lovely with the oil? Just look at all the different colors from the Meranti coming out.
Exactly. It looks totally different than what it was this morning from the bland wood. And we literally, we took those pieces of wood, we cut the shapes and the curves into the legs, we put a skirting on, we cut out our top, recessed for the glass. And you know what's nice is you can choose different types of woods
different heights, different sizes. Yeah.
And that's how we get it done. For more information on the project, visit thehomechannel.co.za.
Get It Done was made possible with Bosch. Log on to boschdoit.co.za for more inspirational projects and helpful tips from our DIY and gardening experts. Bosch, home made by you.